Hello, I'm Alan, and welcome to today's edition of Alan's Cycling Adventures. I actually almost forgot to record this today, so it's going to be quick. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Click the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, or ideas for future editions of Alan's Cycling Adventures, be sure to leave them in the comments below. Now it's off to Gallup, New Mexico. Woo! Well, without further ado, let's ride. Another hurried intro for a different reason this time. This time the reason for the hurried intro was I had gotten to the front of the hotel in plenty of time. I had planned a photo op with me and a couple other riders, which you'll see on the blog. And it was an interesting picture. One of the other riders, Odie, is a retired Navy pilot. He had with him a Navy jersey. I have my Army jersey. And one of our riders, Barb, is raising money for veterans with PTSD and traumatic brain injuries and things like that. And she has jerseys for her fundraising. And so I wanted to get a picture of the three of us together with our jerseys. So I got to the front of the hotel in plenty of time. We got our pictures and got my tires ready, got my bike ready. We got briefed by Paula. I signed out. Everybody was heading out, and I realized I didn't record an intro. So I quickly recorded an intro so that I wouldn't lose too much time. But that's why in the early part of this ride, you don't see anybody in front of me. That's because most of the people had already left a minute or two before I even hit the road. It's all good. I made the trip, so, it doesn't really make any difference. In terms of this particular ride, the route was mostly on I-40, on the shoulder again. And of course, the shoulder is strewn with little bits of destroyed tires with their little steel wires from the steel belts. And those are the enemy. And so many of us had flats. There were many flats over the course of the ride. I thought I had gotten through unscathed, but it turns out that I have once again gotten what I call a hotel room flat. And that is, I get to the hotel, I bring the bike up, I go to dinner, I come back, I do stuff, and then I discover that one of my tires is soft. In this case, once again, it's my back tire. So while this video is uploading, I will be changing the tube, finding the piece of wire, and pulling it out. So that makes 4 flats for me for the trip. Believe me, I am not complaining. There are people on this trip who have had 4 flats in one ride. So, like I said, I'm not complaining. I've been fortunate in the flat department. In terms of this ride, we did have our second state line crossing into New Mexico. We went from Holbrook, Arizona to Gallup, New Mexico. I left at 7:34 a.m., and the weather at the start was cloudy. Temperature was 55 degrees Fahrenheit with a feels-like temperature of 53 degrees Fahrenheit. The humidity was 38%, and the wind was 3.0 miles per hour from the east-southeast. So at the start, we had kind of a quartering headwind. It eventually shifted to a tailwind, and then we ran into some bad weather just to the north of our course. We actually lucked out. We didn't get rained on, but the thunderstorms to the north did produce quite a gusty crosswind, which made the last part of the trip kind of interesting in terms of dealing with the wind. In any event, the length of this ride was 93.09 miles. I'll have more to say about that length at the end. My average moving speed was 15.4 miles per hour, which is I'm pretty proud of, given the fact that this ride was almost entirely uphill. Not steeply uphill, there were no Garmin climbs, but it was steadily uphill. My max speed was 32.3 miles per hour. I had a total moving time of 6 hours, 3 minutes, and 19 seconds, and an elapsed time of 7 hours, 35 minutes, and 14 seconds. I do try to keep my stops to a minimum. However, at the second SAG stop, there was a food vendor selling Navajo fry bread. I could not resist. I had to get myself one. So I had to wait for it to be made because she was making it fresh. And then, of course, the time to eat it, and the time to... there was a gift shop. I went in, I perused what they had, I bought some stuff. And then when we got to Gallup, as I usually do, I found a convenience store to get a sandwich and a chocolate milk. The chocolate milk was for after the ride. The sandwich was for right then and there. And then proceed to the hotel. And I'll talk more about the proceeding to the hotel in a moment. My average heart rate today was 116 beats per minute, and my maximum heart rate was 130 beats per minute. According to Garmin and Strava, I only burned 1,897 calories. I take that with a grain of salt. My average cadence was 64 RPM, and my max cadence was 140. Total elevation gained on this ride, according to Strava's map data, was 2,767 feet. And according to Garmin's barometric data, it was 2,523 feet. As usual, I tend to put more credence in the Strava reading, since that's based on map data. Since the weather was very different between Holbrook and Gallup, that could account for barometric differences, which could account for more than a 200-foot difference in the elevation readings. According to Garmin, I had 21,912 pedal strokes, and according to Strava, my average power output was 102 watts. In terms of where we rode today, we started, of course, in Holbrook, Arizona. We went through Sun Valley, Adamana. We rode through the Petrified Forest National Park, Navajo, and our first SAG stop was at a rest stop on I-40 in Navajo. Chambers, Sanders, Hoke. Our second SAG was in Hoke at I believe it was called Indian City. It was a little place with some shops. Then we went through Lupton and came upon our second state line crossing into Manuelita, New Mexico. Then we rode through Defiance, Mentmore, Allison, and finally Gallup. When we were at that second SAG stop, one of the riders, well, I'll talk more about that in a moment, because in the video I'm coming up on the state line crossing. We're getting there. That was state line crossing number 2. I am now in New Mexico. Woohoo! See you at the finish. Anyway, one of the riders checked the radar in her weather app and said it looked like we were going to luck out with the thunderstorms that we saw approaching. And we did. You can see them kind of off to the left on the screen. But they did produce a gusty crosswind, which made things a little interesting. Also, after my stop in Gallup, where I picked up my usual sandwich and a chocolate milk and ate the sandwich right there and brought the chocolate milk to the hotel, we ran into an interesting issue. And Paula had kind of foreshadowed this issue during her briefing in the morning. She said that we were going to be taking a turn and going over the railroad tracks, and it was a shortcut to the hotel. And she said, now, once upon a time, when we rode this route, there was a train parked on the tracks blocking that street, and people were calling her, "What do we do? What do we do?" And she said, if that's the case, don't call me. I can't move the train. There is an overpass a little bit further ahead. Just ride down to the overpass, go over the tracks, and you'll find your way to the hotel. Well, it was easier said than done. As I was approaching the turn, I came across another rider in the group, Jim, who was stopped trying to figure out what to do. He, I think, had left in the early group and had not gotten that briefing. So I let him know that, I pointed out the overpass and let him know that Paula had talked about it. And so we proceeded together to try to find the overpass. We couldn't find the entrance to the overpass. We ended up finding Fred in one of the SAG vehicles, and he wasn't sure how to get on the overpass. Jim looked it up on his phone, and so off we went, navigating off of Jim's phone to get to the hotel. And so thank you and a shout out to Jim. Without you, I might still have been on the wrong side of the tracks. Well, I probably would have eventually pulled out my own phone and done the same as he did, but he was the one who thought of it first. So kudos to Jim. Anyway, as you can see, here's where I was talking to Fred. And very shortly we will be turning around and heading back to, there's Jim in front of me, heading to the overpass. We came across a few other riders, and we made it in. And that's all for now. All right, bonus miles. There was a train parked on the railroad tracks where we were supposed to cross, and so we ended up finding another route. Anyway, I am here in Gallup, and so until next time, stay safe out there.